Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It's Thursday, which means it's match preview day. And I'm pleased to say that I'm joined by Barry Worthington today. He's a Wigan fan and he's part of the Progress with Unity Wigan Athletic podcast. So go and check out Barry on Twitter. Go and check out the podcast. I will leave the details for both in the description at the bottom at the end of this video. But yeah, looking forward to the weekend. Both played Tuesday evening. The Latics, unfortunately, in a game that I thought they'd win up against a side in Sheffield Wednesday that had been in and out of form, but the Owls turned them over 2-1. So a good result for the visitors, not so good for Barry, unfortunately. But from the Gills' point of view, first clean sheet of the season, first away victory of the season, and probably our most complete display of the entire campaign so far, back to the levels of where Gills were second half of last season when we briefly flirted with the playoffs. But first of all, Barry, thank you for taking the time out of your day to come on and have a chat.
Yeah, no problem. Looking forward to it, actually. Love talking about the Latics.
We all love talking about football, don't we? So it's all good. Yeah. And obviously, frustration of last night, I'm sure, is tempered with the fact that you've had a very solid start on the whole.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm frustrated or not about last night. It was a great game. It was a good game to watch. Two teams going at each other. And it's just one of those things. I don't know if you've seen the goals, but we gifted them 2 goals. One was an own goal by Max Power, a bit of a mix-up between him and the goalkeeper, under no pressure whatsoever, comical goal. And then the second goal, which sealed it for them, was Jack Watmore was trying to let the ball run out, like they do defenders, shielding the ball from Gregory, who managed to wrap his foot round him and knock it into the centre of the box. And Callum Patterson was steaming in and he just buried it at the far post unmarked. That was 2-0. We got a penalty. Callum Lang's been fantastic this season. Callum Lang jinked into the box, got tripped up, and we put the penalty away 10 minutes to go. So you noticed they brought nearly 4,000 last night, the Wednesday fans, so it was a great turnout. But from bouncing and bouncing and bouncing, suddenly it just went woof. They could feel the despair in them because I know they've conceded a lot of late goals and they must have been thinking, here we go again. But I'll just say this: if you want to know how to beat us, watch that video because of that game. Because Darren Moore did a fantastic job. He won the tactical battle. He knew exactly how to stop us from playing because they're not a great team, Sheffield Wednesday. And I had us down for a 3-0 win, if I'm being honest. But he changed his formation round, he changed his team round, and he stopped us. And but it made for a great game, and I'm still buzzing about our start anyway.
Yeah, I think so. Because looking at the form over the last 6, Gills have picked up 6 points, so we're averaging a point a game. It was before last night's win, there was 3 draws and 2 defeats. I'm not going to talk about the injury problems because I get bored of repeating myself. So yeah, 6 points from 18 for Gills over the last half dozen games. Prior to that defeat last night, Tuesday night, Wigan had won 5 on the spin. So not a disaster. And Barry certainly seems quite chipper still regarding the start, which is fair enough. They're still right in amongst it, got a game in hand, 15 points from 18 available. Gills at home this season in the league, played 4 times. There's a single win, a single defeat and a couple of draws, so 5 points from 12. The only defeat though was against an MK Don side that we had to play with 10 men for for 65 minutes, which is never easy. MK Dons are a difficult side to play against with 11, let alone one less for an hour or so. And eventually the numbers told, and they gave us a hiding, and that's what happens, unfortunately. Wigan, decent enough on the road, lost on the first day of the season at Sunderland, another team in brilliant form, but it's another 2 wins after that. So 6 points from 9 for Liam Richardson's men. So it makes all the makings of a decent battle on Saturday between 2 sides. One that's been in very good form in Wigan, I think it's fair to say, Baz, and Gills just starting to find a little bit of form, just starting to pick up some consistent results, pick a consistent side. We're unbeaten in 3. Like I say, only 1 defeat in the last 5 was against MK Dons with 10 men. And like we said, Wigan, first defeat since the opening day of the season. I've wrote down on my notes, slightly surprising loss given the form of the 2 sides, but you seem still upbeat, and it's great to hear someone talk about a defeat and just be honest and say, Darren Moore's done us over. He's done his own work and he's got the better of us on the night. And I think that's quite refreshing rather than talking to, we always hear opposition managers, don't we, they lose, no, we should have had this decision, the ref did this wrong. And sometimes you just have to say, they were better than us for 90 minutes and we dust ourselves off and we move on to the next one.
Yeah. And talking about referees, I mean, this season, the referee standard has been absolutely shocking. But I've got to say, last night, Sam Barrett, he had a great game. he had an absolute fantastic game, and it was really good to see. There was challenges flying in left, right, and Chelsea, and he was letting play carry on. There was Wednesday players went down a couple of times, feigning injuries as they do, trying to kill the game off with a bit of time wasting. Didn't buy into any of it, just carried on playing. I thought he was tremendous for both sides as well. They got stuck into us, the very physical Shea Dunkley at the back, Gregory up the front, and the midfield was quite robust. But he did let the game flow, and it made for a really good game of football. Exciting. It weren't a purist game of football, but it was good end-to-end stuff. It was very exciting. Both keepers pulled off some great saves, and it's been. It was a good night, and it poured down as well. I got wet through walking home, but it still didn't dampen my
We got absolutely soaked walking back to the ground. It was like a monsoon, and it was like that for the whole of the 2-hour drive home as well. And it was blowing right into the windscreen the whole way down the M11 and the M25, which weren't great fun, but you don't mind so much when you've won. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I mean, I spoke to our chief executive not long ago, and I was just saying to him, he said, "What do you think of the start?" I said, "It's brilliant." I said, "But to be quite honest, after what we've been through for the last 12 months, it doesn't matter this season. We're just so grateful we've got a club. We could tell we're not going to be in danger of getting relegated because we've got some quality in there." So they had like a free hit, so if it had been mid-table, nobody would have cared. But to be, where we are top of the league, and then until last night, and we're second now with the game in hand. But it's just brilliant, and everybody's buzzing. Just been for my ticket this morning for Bolton. We've got Bolton in 2 weeks. Tasty, Bolton away, and they were queuing up from 8 o'clock this morning all the way around the North Stand at our place, queuing up for the tickets. So there's going to be a bumper crowd. Everybody's bought into what's happening at the club at the moment, and you'll say everybody, well, you only get 8,000 spectators, but that's us. That's what we are. We're not a massive club, we're probably a medium club in this division, but everybody's buzzing. All the fan base is buzzing about it. So, talking about the away form, we played our last away game was at Accrington. And I thought that would be a really stiff challenge for us because we know what John Coleman's teams are like. So well organised, the drilled and all the rest of it. And I went along there and I sat right on the halfway line, right at the front, a cracking view. And from the word go, we was all over them like a sweaty rash. And we was absolutely fantastic that day. We played Charlton as well, which did you? I don't know if you mentioned them or not, but we beat them 2-0 down at their place, and we never ever win in London. So that was fantastic. The Sunderland game, which we lost, we was all right for the first 10 minutes. We looked good, but half the players didn't know each other's first names at that stage, So it was like a brand new team. Jordan Cousins, who has been really good in midfield for us, he'd been injured, so he was missing. There was a couple of other players missing. So home and away form has been sort of mirroring each other. We've been on that run of 5 games where we've won the lot, and it didn't seem to matter whether it was playing as home or away. We went into each game playing exactly the same style of football, going at the opposition and trying to control the game, and it's been brilliant. It's been brilliant. So the fact that we're going down to Gillingham and a place where we haven't won since 2004 normally would have me a little bit worried, but I'm not. I don't want to sound too cocky because I said we'd stuff Sheff Wednesday 3-0, and obviously that backfired on me. But I don't feel as intimidated by coming to your place as perhaps I normally would do.
Yeah, and I looked at the results last night, obviously, when I got home after driving home, and I was like, you think, Wigan have lost. That's good. That's that winning run over. It has to end at some point. But then you think, they're probably going to they're going to react now. So they're probably going to be a wounded animal. So is it such a good thing that you've got beaten 4 days before you come and play us? But like I say, it's 2 teams that are running in form and running into some form, and it should have all the makings of a decent game. It'll be, everybody knows what Steve Evans' teams do. We'll be direct, we'll be robust, we'll try and be hard to beat, and you'll try and counter that with. And you've got better footballers. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that you haven't. You've got a bigger squad, you've got more depth, and that's great. And I know I think I upset some Wigan fans in the summer when I said I quoted their spending, but I didn't mean on fees. I just meant generally you must be paying, decent wages. But good luck to you. After everything you've been through over the last couple of seasons, I really want Wigan to do well, apart from for 90 minutes twice this season, obviously, because I want Gillingham to beat you. But you've mentioned your squad. I wanted to talk about the forward players because Charlie White was probably the marquee addition in the summer. There's lots of social media chat about how much he's on, but that's by the by. If he's scoring goals, it don't matter whether he's on 10 quid a week, 10 grand a week. If he's doing a job and he's moving you up the table, then good luck to you, good luck to him. He's found his feet. I think he was goalless in his first half a dozen, but he's now up to 4. You've got Callum Lang's got 3. You've got Stephen Humphries, who's barely getting a look in, and he's a good player at this level if you can keep him fit. The interesting one I wanted to talk to you about, though, Baz, was Will Keane playing a completely different role this season. He's always been a number 9 for me throughout his career. I mean, he's been nomadic, don't get me wrong, and he's probably not fulfilled that potential he had as a kid. But it seems Liam Richardson operating him in a slightly different role, almost like a centre attacking midfielder in that 10 behind Charlie White to accommodate both. 4 in 9, and he looks like a proper centre forward. He looks a threat as soon as he gets into the box. What have you made of that pool of attacking players start to the season?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, they're all chipping in with assists as well. Charlie, like you said, Charlie White didn't score until we went to Accrington, which was 2 games ago. But he'd been involved in most of our goals, in some parts of the build-up. He occupies the back 4, not just the centre half. He occupies a lot of them. His physicality, he works hard, he lays off well. The Sunderland fans said without McGeady he's awful and he can only score with his head. But he's not scored an headed goal yet. And I'll be honest with you.
The double against Accrington were 2 really smart. I think the second one, where he dropped a shoulder, right-footed finish into the bottom corner, was really good. There was a dinked finish at the weekend as well, that's proper predator finish. That's not just, like you say, just stand on a 6-yard box and wait for someone across it to hit you in the nut. That's good centre-forward play. And a lot of Sunderland fans, like you say, did say, aside from scoring goals, he didn't offer a lot more. But it seems he's got a slightly different role at Wigan, potentially, because you don't have an Aidan McGeady. So he's having to change his game, and he's adapted, and he's doing really well.
Yeah, well, we play with 3 across the front, and like you've just mentioned, Will Keane tucked in behind them as well. So we're quite attack-minded. Callum Lang's been fantastic. He's been superb. He's come on another level this season. He's a year older. He's explosive off the mark. He won us a penalty last night. He scored at the weekend. He's got a vicious shot on him. He's very direct. He gets his head down and he drives in. But he also picks out passes. He picked out Charlie White on Saturday, set him up against Cheltenham with a lovely pullback, and White side-footed it on. But as you mentioned, Will Keane, I got a lot of stick off a certain Ipswich podcast for likening Will Keane to Zinedine Zidane, because they were so surprised that, I mean, what I was doing was I was saying he's like a League One version of him. What I was trying to sing his praises. And they fell about laughing. They said, "Oh, he's awful. He's awful." He's not off. He is absolute. He's been, what a revelation. I'm not sure where his stats are at the moment, but 2 games ago, in the last 10 games, he'd been involved in 14 goals, either as an assist or scoring.
Yeah, I think I heard that. It might have been on the Quest highlights. I think they mentioned it. Yeah, which is a phenomenal record.
Oh, he's just magic. But this was part of the job that Chef Wednesday did on him last night. They had Hutchinson, the centre back at Wednesday? Well, they had him sitting in midfield, marking Will Keane, and he did a great job on him. He was going through him. Every time Keane got the ball, it was bang, bang, it was straight into him. He run out of steam. The 2 came off, and they put 2 midfielders on Keane. So every time he had the ball, there was 2 players around him. It was very difficult for him last night, and it sort of stopped our threat. And that's one of the things that I thought Darren Moore had done really well. Part of his tactics there, he identified where we were coming from, because Keane has been, he's been superb. Honestly, it's been a joy to watch him. Now, I know he's been blighted with injuries throughout his career. I know that. And he's been injury-free now for 6 months. And you can tell he's enjoying his football. He's smiling all the time. He looks, like you said, you think of him as a centre forward, but he's so much more than that. He's dropping deep. He's playing in that 10 role, and his passing range is fantastic as well. He'll knock a 5-yard ball, then he'll do a 25-yard defence splitting pass as well. He's picking everything out. He's brilliant. Yeah, can't praise him enough. Fantastic stuff.
It's certainly one that we're going to have to keep an eye on at the weekend, along with White and Lang and whoever else. You made some really good signings in the summer. I said that straight away, and I said the only concern I had over Liam Richardson about in terms of being at the top end of the table was whether he could deal with a different type of pressure, because it's all right coming in and, you know, you got no money, you can't spend because of administration and all that sort of carry on. So you almost get type of a free swing because there's no pressure, because you're working within, you know, with one hand tied behind your back, so to speak. And I said, if Liam Richardson can deal with the pressure of being in a promotion battle where he's got a lot of big players, big egos potentially as well, and he can keep them happy, I think we're going to have a great season. And so far, I think he's doing that, and he's doing it really well. And again, he seems really likeable from an outsider's perspective. And aside from the two fixtures, I really hope you do go back to the Championship, because you fans deserve it. And like we've mentioned a few times when we've chatted on Twitter on these type of things, we always seem to have sort of been interlinked, Gillingham and Wigan, over the last 25 years. There was the 2000, obviously the Wembley final. There was 2015-16 when we threw away a 2-goal lead at your place, and it all, I think, was probably the day when the wheels fell off in terms of our title charge, and you went on an unbelievable unbeaten run and won the league and got promoted. And there's been good battles down the years. In the late 90s, I think we come up from what's now League Two, didn't we, in 95, 96, when you had the three Spanish lads playing, and we always sort of followed each other for sort of half a decade over that period, didn't we? So it's one club that you always keep an eye on, I think, as a Gills fan, because they've been so familiar to us until you got to the Premier League. And obviously that's a long time ago now. But yeah, you certainly look like, barring a horrendous collapse in form or injury crisis, I think you'll be thereabouts at the end of the season. But you mentioned Will Keane, you mentioned Charlie White. Obviously they're likely to play, I'd imagine, if they're fit on Saturday. So what do you think Liam Richardson will line up in terms of your 11 at the weekend?
Well, we've been unchanged for the last 6 games, and I think that's he lacks that stability. I mean, talking about Liam Richardson as well, he brought in Rob Kelly, who used to be at Leicester City, amongst other places, and also Barra's manager last season, and James Beattie is both are his number 2. So he's got a bit of experience there, and both of them have managed, you know. So that's it. And I asked Liam a couple of about 4 or 5 weeks ago, when we signed like Jordan Jones, and we brought in James McLean. And I said, there's a lot of players there in similar positions. Are you going to keep them all happy throughout the season? And he said, we'll need every single one of them. But, well, we will, won't we? Because League One is that, it's a, you know, we know what type of season it's going to be in League One. It's a battle all the time, isn't it? Yeah. So I don't think you'll be looking at making too many changes. The only one I could possibly see would be perhaps if he might leave James McLean out and start Jordan Jones, who came on last night for McLean, and he looked a little bit sharper than McLean had done. Now, I like James McLean. I think he's definitely a Championship player and possibly a Premier League player. He's very direct. He's got a good football brain on him. He can play in multiple positions. But his last 2 games, he just seemed a little bit flat. So I suspect if we're going to make a change, it'll be Jordan Jones in for James McLean. But apart from that, I can't see us altering the team at all.
He's not going to react, is he? He's not going to overreact to just one defeat, having won 5 previously. He'd be daft if he did, to be quite honest, surely. But
yeah, on another day, we'd have won that last night 1-0, because that's we give them two absolute. Max Power put an header into our net from 25 yards out. They floated a free kick over. I heard Ben Amos, the keeper, shout, "Maxi!" So what he was actually shouting was for Max Power to leave it, because he'd gone to the corner of his box. But I think Max Power thought he meant, just nod it back to me. And he's nodded it as Ben Amos has been sprinting towards the corner of his box to collect the ball. Obviously, it's happened, and he's had to turn around and try and sprint back to stop it going in there, and he couldn't do it. By the time he'd stopped and turned, the ball's almost on the 6-yard line. He's not getting back. So that was that goal. It was a comedy goal, you know, one of those. And the other one was really Jack Watmore, who's been absolute. Portsmouth fans told us he's the best centre half in League One, and we were like, is he really? Yes, he is. He's just awesome.
I think he's another one. If you can keep him fit, he's always had injury problems, I think, hasn't he, at Pompey? But again, if you can keep him fit and get him regular game time, then he's going to be an asset, and he seems to be doing that at the moment.
Yeah, but he instead of launching the ball into the stands yesterday, he tried to shepherd it out, and he got caught with his pants down. So, and Gregory nipped in and squared it for Patterson, who just fired home. but we've also signed Ben Amos, who's I can't believe how we've managed to get that lad on a free transfer. A lot of our signings have come in on. I think we've only paid for 3 players, Humphreys being one who you mentioned, and I do like Stevie Humphreys. I loved him last season at Rochdale. We bought Jordan Kerr from St Johnstone up in Scotland, who has not played for us yet. We brought him in on deadline day, so I don't know why he's not played. I don't think he's injured. I think he's just like acclimatising to Wigan.
Well, and also if he comes in late and you've already started the season and you're playing as you are, then it's going to be difficult to break in, isn't it? So it's not a horrible problem to have, so to speak.
No, and Jordan Jones is the other player who we bought from Rangers, So we've not spent a great deal of cash on transfer fees, but like I say, I mean, I think our wages are probably decent wages for the division. And looking at the calibre of play we've brought in, they must be. But yeah, so going back to your original point, the starting lineup, I think if you look at last night's team, you've probably got at least 10 of them. The only change I'd see would be Jordan Jones for James McLean. I couldn't see anything else, and I'm not sure he'll do that, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Gills are finally in that position where we might be able to name pretty much an unchanged 11, because we've had so many injuries and COVID issues to start the season that it's been, different team, 3 or 4 different week to week, which isn't ideal. I mean, last season, I've joked before on one of these preview videos to another away fan and said, doing that fan hub app, it was easy last season to get 11 out of 11 with Gills because we were so consistent in our selection. And I've been celebrating if I've got 7 or 8 this season so far. But I think Saturday we'll have Jack Tucker back from suspension. He missed Tuesday night's win at Cambridge because he picked up 5 yellow cards, and he's our best centre half. So that was an even bigger feather in the cap for the 2 centre halves that had to play. Reece Bennett, who we signed as a centre back, has barely played there, unfortunately. I think he's played 1 League Cup game there, but aside from that, he's had to cover at right back because we've had these injury problems. But him and Max Amar were brilliant. But I just think Jack Tucker, you always have them players that are just that good that they have to come back in. So I think the only change that I would make would be Tucker in for Reece Bennett, which is really harsh on Reece Bennett because he was absolutely superb at Cambridge. So it'd be the same 11 aside from that. So it'd be a back 4 of Robbie McKenzie and David Tutonda at the full-back areas, Amar and Tucker in the middle, midfield 4 of Alex McDonald, Carl Dempsey, Daniel Adseed and Danny Lloyd. And then it'd be based on the performance that we saw from both of them Tuesday night. If Verdane Oliver's fit, he'll be up front with John Akindi. But there is a question mark over Verdane, which I'm sure your supporter bases are probably thinking, oh, let's hope he just misses out. I know he scored the winner at your place last season. He scored in at our place, so I think he scored in the away game as well. But obviously, Wigan are a completely different animal to the one that we had to face twice last season. And then obviously the bench will be dependent on whether we can get a couple back from injuries and stuff like that. Right, big question before I let you go, Baz, and it's the one we always have to ask before we finish up, and that is score prediction, please.
Right, it's a tough place to go. It's always a tough place to go for us. But I've just got this feeling this season, and I think the performance was up there last night if the result weren't. So what I'll say is I think we're going to crack on, and this is no disrespect to Gillingham whatsoever, but I think we're going to beat you 2-0. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's fine. Don't have to apologise. Means I'll enjoy it more if you're wrong, obviously. To be fair, if we'd gone back probably 2 or 3 games when we were still having injury problems and we was in no type of form, and I'd have probably said the same. But I've just seen there's been signs since the MK Dons defeat where we had to play with 10 men, and we was in that game second half at 2-1 with 10 men for 25 minutes. We had a real go. We was quite brave and went 3-4-2 and said, right, we're going to fall on our sword. If we get bashed, we get bashed. And eventually we got bashed. But I'd have rather us done that than just sat back because MK Dons would have just picked us off anyway. Charlton first half was poor, but second half was a proper Steve Evans performance. We was in their faces. We was direct. We was getting balls into dangerous areas, and we could have nicked it at the end. Danny Lloyd at the post. The point at Oxford where we rarely score, let alone even get anything, is a good point. It's a team that got in the playoffs last season, and we started slow, and then we picked up, and we got better and better as the game went on. But Tuesday night was a proper Gillingham performance, and one that we've been used to seeing under Steve Evans. From first whistle to last, we were absolutely spot on. And this is a Cambridge side that have been in decent form since coming up to this level. They're scoring goals. They've not missed Paul Mullin. And I thought it was a really good win. So for that reason, I'm going to be optimistic from a Gills perspective. And I'm going to say, plus the fact that we've not actually lost, I think since you got relegated out of the Premier League, you've come to our place 3 times in the league and you've not actually got a point. No, you've picked up a single point. I think it's been last season we beat you 1-0. 17-18 when you went up was 1-1. I think that was one of the first games for Steve Lovell in charge. I think Sam Morsey scored an absolute bomb that night to equalise after Tom Evers had put us in front. And then 15-16, the season where we was both up there for so long, but you stayed up there and the wheels fell off of us. And we won't talk about that. We beat you 2-0. I think Bradley Dack was at the double that day. So I'm going to say Gillingham 1, Wigan 1. Score draw.
Do you know what?
Plus we've drawn 5 games, 1-1 this season anyway. So it seems to be our thing.
Yeah, I'd take that, to be honest. But I'll stick my neck out for a 2-0.
That's fair enough. Right. Barry, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate, as always. Really appreciate you coming on, having a chat. It's been good fun.
No problem. Loved it. Always talk about football, like you say.
Exactly. Right, Gills fans, you know where we are. Instagram, here on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. As I've already mentioned, I'll put Baz's details in the description at the bottom of the video. So go and check him out. Go and check out the podcast. It is a really good listen. You might find out some tidbits about Gillingham and also our opposition prior to Saturday. Yes, that is it. Enjoy the rest of your week. It's nearly the weekend. Let's hope for some decent weather and a decent game Saturday afternoon. But until next time, up the Gills.